Every unit also has a grammar skill. The grammar skill for Unit 1 is about using gerunds and infinitives. So what is a gerund? A gerund is a verb plus ing, but it does not act like a verb. Instead, it acts like a noun. So what does that mean? Well, gerunds, this verb plus ing form, can be found anywhere a noun can be found, such as in the subject position of a sentence or in the object position of a sentence. So, for example, let's take the verb swim, add ing. Let's use it as a subject, which would then make it a gerund because it's acting like a noun. So swimming is fun. So here, because swimming is in the subject position of this sentence, it's acting like a noun. So this ing form is not a verb in this sentence. It is a noun. It is the subject. It is a gerund. What about a sentence like, I enjoy swimming? Again, swimming is a gerund because we have the ing form. However, it's in the object position of the sentence, which is also where we would find a noun. So anytime we have a verb plus ing, but we find it in a position where a noun would be, such as the subject or the object, we have a gerund. Now let's talk about infinitives. What is an infinitive? An infinitive is to plus what we call the base verb or the base form of the verb. The base form of a verb means a verb that has no endings. So it wouldn't have ing or ed or s. No endings at all would be the base form of the verb. Now, infinitives are a lot like gerunds in that they kind of look like a verb, but they're not a verb. They act like a noun, just as we saw with gerunds. And so we know that if they act like nouns, we find them in subject and object positions in a sentence. So what would that look like? Let's go back to swim. To swim is fun. Now that may sound a little awkward to you, but it is a grammatically acceptable sentence to put an infinitive, to, plus the base form of the verb in the subject position of a sentence. We don't often see it that way. With infinitives, we see it much more often in the object position. So something like, I like to swim. Here we have the infinitive, to swim, and it's in the object position of the sentence, so we know that that means that it's functioning like a noun. Okay, let's take a look at what your book has to say about gerunds and infinitives. Okay, we now understand what a gerund or an infinitive looks like. So let's take a closer look. Well, we know that a gerund has a verb plus an ing and that it functions or acts like a noun. So we often see gerunds as the subject of a sentence. So something like the example, leading your team members is a tough job. So if we were to ask, what is the subject of this sentence? Well, leading your team members is the entire subject of the sentence. So the gerund, lead plus ing, is functioning as a noun since it is the subject of this sentence. Now, gerunds can also be used after prepositions. So these are those small words that connect nouns and pronouns, words like about, of, in, for, against. And we can also see gerunds after particular verbs, such as consider, suggest, and recommend. Let's look at the first example of a gerund that follows a preposition. Jay thought about, here's our preposition, accepting the promotion. So accepting here is the gerund, and about is our preposition. And we notice the gerund is following the preposition. Jay thought about accepting the promotion. Now, we also mentioned that certain verbs such as consider, suggest, and recommend also get followed by gerunds. Here's an example. I considered, there's the verb we talked about, voting for her. Voting is the gerund that follows considered. Here we know that voting is functioning as an object in the sentence, so even though it's an ing form, it's really acting like a noun. Something to keep in mind about prepositions and gerunds. After a preposition, you always use a gerund. We never use an infinitive form after a preposition. Important thing to remember. Always use a gerund after a preposition. Okay, let's take a closer look at infinitives. Now we know the infinitive is to plus the base form of the verb. And here's a situation where we often use infinitives after adjective phrases with the verb to be plus the adjective. Now you know the verb to be is, am, are, was, or were. So after the verb to be plus an adjective, let's see what that looks like. Here's an example. It is important. So here we have the verb to be is, we have the adjective important, and here we have the infinitive following that phrase. It is important to respect, there's the infinitive, your employees. So we can probably think of other examples of be plus an adjective that get followed by an infinitive. Maybe something like, it is wise to study. So here we have is, the verb to be, wise, which is our adjective, followed by the infinitive to study. Now, just like gerunds, infinitives also get used after particular verbs, such as want, decide, try, hope, need, expect, agree, and learn. Here's an example of that. She hopes, there's the verb hope, to become, there's our infinitive, president one day. Let's see if we could use the verb want followed by an infinitive. I want to go home. So here we have the verb want followed by the infinitive to plus the base form of the verb go. Okay, let's see if we can get some more practice in the next lesson. Okay, let's do a little bit of practice. Let's see if we can find the gerund or infinitive in each of these sentences. When Jenny Pitcher needed to hire a director of business development, she turned to her closest friend, Kate Massey. All right, so do we see any ing forms which would make it a gerund functioning as a noun? No. All right, how about any infinitive forms, which would be to plus the base form of the verb? When Jenny Pitcher needed to hire. There's our infinitive following the verb need. Now we have another to in this sentence, but it is not an infinitive, so be careful. Not every single time you see the preposition to indicates that it is an infinitive. Here, it's followed by her, which is a possessive pronoun, not a verb. And remember, the infinitive is to plus the base form of the verb. So to her closest friend is not an infinitive. How about for sentence 2? As for the subordinate, he or she needs to understand that the boss can't show any favoritism. Okay, I don't see any INGs or gerunds. Do we have any infinitives? Oh, there it is again. To plus the base form of the verb, understand, again following the verb need here. She needs to understand. So we have an infinitive in number 2. How about number 3? Knowing someone will fit in doesn't alleviate other problems. Okay, yeah, we start right off with knowing, which is an ing form, making it a gerund. Knowing someone will fit in, all of this is functioning as the subject to this sentence, which we know gerunds are often found in the subject position. So we found our gerund. How about number 4? Managing friends isn't always a choice. Okay, again, we're starting right off with our ing form, our gerund, managing friends. Again, it's in the subject position, and we know we see gerunds often in the subject position, and so we have a gerund in number 4. How about 5? Gina Cox suggests saying something like this: I still want us to be friends. Okay, do we have any ing forms or gerunds in this sentence? Well, it looks like we may have one right here. Saying is an ing form. Saying something like this is actually the object of this sentence, making it a gerund, and it's following the verb that we know often does have a gerund following it, suggests. So we have a gerund. Do we have an infinitive? I still want us to be friends. So we also have an infinitive. How about number 6? Say something like this: I still want to be friends. And again, we have the infinitive to be following the verb want. Number 7, I didn't jump on it immediately, says Massey. I thought about taking the job for a while. Okay, let's see. Do we have any ing forms? Well, here we have taking, and you notice that it's following this preposition about. We also know that gerunds often follow prepositions. I thought about taking the job for a while. So there's our gerund. Were you able to find them all?